Welcome, Tonight, let your thoughts drift far, far away, past the hum of electricity, the buzz of screens, and the pull of the day behind you. Close your eyes if you haven't already and imagine a world of clay and silence, a world where the river ruled and the gods watched from atop terraced towers of brick. You're about to visit a place not often dreamed of, ancient Babylon. This was a land of dusty roads and winding canals, of marketplaces filled with barley and bronze, where life was measured not by time as we know it, but by the rhythm of the sun, and the weight of debt. And while the name Babylon conjures visions of kings and ziggurats, tonight we'll begin much lower to the ground, with cracked hands, and blistered feet, and mud, because before the myths and majesty came the bricks. Segment 1. Why it sucked to be a Babylonian brickmaker. Imagine yourself waking in the dim glow before dawn. In a one-room mud brick home, the air already thick with the scent of dust and damp earth. You lie on a woven mat, your muscles sore from yesterday. And every day before that, you are a brickmaker, one of many. Unseen, mostly, but essential to this strange, rising city. There is no alarm clock, but the roosters cry just before the sun reaches the horizon. It's time. You step outside barefoot, your feet sinking slightly into the dry cracked ground, still cool from the night. The Euphrates is near, and that is where your work begins. Down by the river, the mud waits. With wooden paddles in your own hands, you mix water, earth and straw, kneading it slowly, rhythmically, until it holds shape. There's little conversation among your fellow laborers, just the wet slosh of clay, and the dull thud of wooden molds dropped onto the ground. Each brick must dry under the sun for days, rows upon rows of them, baking in the heat, while you shape more. Sometimes, your employer, perhaps a temple official, demands your name be etched into each brick, not for your glory, but for accountability. If a wall collapses, someone must answer. You are paid in barley, measured by volume, not fairness, and if the rains come too early, and the bricks dissolve into mush, you'll work double to replace them. Your skin, by now, has grown used to the sting of salt from the river, and you're back to the weight of heavy baskets. Lunch is modest, a barley cake, perhaps some dates, and a sip of sour beer, thick like gruel. There is no pause for reflection, no weekends, only the rhythm. Mix, mold, dry, stack, repeat. When your day ends just before the sun disappears, you walk home beneath the slow smoke of hearth fires, past the walls you helped raise but will never own. No one will remember your name, but the bricks, they will last. Segment 1 complete. Type continue when you're ready for segment 2. Hammurabi and the weight of laws. As the stars rise gently over the Mesopotamian plain, we now shift from the muddy fields and heavy bricks to a man who held Babylon in his grasp, not with brute strength, but with words etched in stone. King. Imagine yourself now in the early 18th century BCE. The scent of hot bitumen fills the air as scribes chip carefully into black recording decisions not just for today, but for all time. Hammurabi is not a towering warlord, but a patient strategist. His court is orderly, his voice measured, his presence quietly formidable. He is building something deeper than ziggurats, a new order. The Code of Hammurabi, as we know it today, was not just a legal document. It was a monument, a symbol, meant to impress and to endure. At the top of the steely stands Hammurabi, hand raised in reverence, before Shamash, the god of justice. The message is clear. These laws come from the divine, but read the laws, and you'll find not the will of gods, but the weary hands of humanity. If a man puts out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out. If a builder constructs a house that collapses and kills the owner, the builder shall be put to death. Justice, perhaps, but harsh, uneven, and deeply aware of class. The punishments vary, sometimes wildly based on whether you were a noble, a freedman, or a slave. The code was less about fairness as we know it, and more about stability. A blueprint for managing a society on the brink of chaos. You can almost picture Hammurabi, pacing behind his throne, worried not only about invasions from neighboring Elam or Assyria, but about disputes over irrigation, property lines, and unpaid debts. His kingdom was not built solely on conquest, but on contracts and consequences. Through tablets and scribes, his word spread from city to city, market to market. In a time when most ruled with the sword, Hammurabi ruled with a stylus, and while his empire faded, his code endured. etched into stone and into memory, a quiet legacy that whispers still. As sleep begins to edge nearer, we turn our gaze upward, toward structures that once pierced the sky, and are now nothing but dust beneath our feet. The ziggurats of Babylon. Imagine standing at the base of a massive stepped tower, each level rising above the last like a staircase to the heavens. At the very top, a shrine shrouded in smoke and mystery, where only the highest priests could enter, where the gods were believed to dwell. And yet, we've never truly found Babylon's greatest ziggurat. The Etemenanki, the foundation of heaven and earth, was said to be nearly 300 feet tall. So tall, in fact, that some scholars believe it inspired the later story of the Tower of Babel. But the ziggurat is lost, its bricks stolen, crumbled, or buried under centuries of sand and conquest. No, paintings remain, only vague tablet descriptions, and questions. What rituals were performed in its shadow? What did the sacred chamber look like where the god Marduk was believed to rest? We do know this. Each level of the ziggurat was painted a different color perhaps. What? Black, red, and gold. A layered offering to the heavens. Priests ascended the steps slowly, perhaps in silence, carrying offerings, dates, grain, incense, and prayers. Imagine the smell of burning cedar, the low chanting in Sumerian or Akkadian, the wind sweeping across the terrace, lifting dust and prayer alike. The gods of Babylon were many: Marduk, Ishtar, Nabu, each with elaborate myths and statues that once stood tall in temple courtyards. And yet, today, their names linger mostly in broken tablets, their images shattered, their temples sunken beneath riverside soil. Archaeologists still debate where some of them stood, and what they truly looked like, but perhaps that's the magic of it. In their loss, they become timeless. The ziggurats may be gone, but the silence they left behind still hums with the memory of stone and stars. While much of Babylon was built by calloused hands and tired backs, a smaller circle lived a world apart. The elite of Babylon nobles, scribes, priests, and officials inhabited quieter, cooler rooms, and lives filled not with clay, but with paperwork. You might think life at the top was lavish, and at times it was. But in Babylon, to be powerful was also to be buried in administration. Imagine yourself not in the fields this time, but seated on a low-cushioned bench, surrounded by clay tablets stacked on wooden shelves, each one bearing cuneiform lines that must be reviewed, recorded, and filed. You are a scribe perhaps attached to the temple, or more rarely, to the royal court. Your day is a steady rhythm of stylus and clay, tax records, marriage contracts, grain inventories, border disputes, letters to be copied, laws to be enforced. The bureaucracy of Babylon was famously detailed, a vast paperless paper trail of clay and code. But there were rewards. Evenings brought banquets in shaded courtyards, brass trays filled with roasted lamb, garlic, onions, lentils, and honeyed cakes. Jugs of date wine passed around. As lyres played soft melodies, and dancers moved slowly to ancient rhythms, the nobility of Babylon adorned themselves with linen robes, intricate jewelry, and, notably, long, elaborately curled beards, a symbol of wisdom and station. Beard maintenance was no small matter. Oils were applied daily, and special tools used to achieve the distinct coiled style. To have a full, carefully kept beard was a mark of dignity and discipline. Religion, too, was central. Many elite men also held priestly roles, officiating sacrifices, festivals, and temple business. And while these privileged classes rarely saw the muddy banks of the Euphrates, their lives were not without worry. A political misstep, an accusation of corruption, a failed harvest, could end a career, or worse. Still, from their courtyards, they watched the city rise, brick by brick, tablet by tablet, and as night fell, they lit lamps, fueled by sesame oil, and read aloud poetry from Sumer, or myths of Gilgamesh, waiting, perhaps, for the stars to return. And so, as we gently step back from the world of Babylon, we leave behind the dusty roads and sun-baked temples, the scent of baked clay, the rhythm of styluses scratching into soft tablets, and the hum of life beside the Euphrates. We've walked the uneven streets of ancient Babylon, where laborers hauled stone and families shared thin bread. In the shadow of mighty we've stood beside Hammurabi listening to laws that sought not fairness, but control. We've gazed upward at towers lost to time, structures whose stories still linger in shards and shadows, and we've peered into the quiet chambers of scribes and priests, where power was held not in swords, but in symbols pressed into clay. Babylon is gone now. Its towers are dust, its gods silent, its rivers have shifted, but its memory remains. Not in glory or conquest, but in the quiet record-keeping of its people, in the rules they etched, the prayers they whispered, the homes they built, layer by layer, year by year. And as you drift now into sleep, perhaps you carry a little of their world with you. A world of soft sandals on brick roads, the soft flicker of oil lamps, and the whisper of reeds rustling along a river that still flows, somewhere far away. And thank you for walking with me through the silence of history.